And that jarring cacophony tells you you're back with the Power of Three podcast. It's Monday, and it's time for another of our Doctor Who book episodes. And today we're taking a look at a 10th Doctor novel, as we haven't done one in quite a while. And we have done the vast majority of them, thankfully. I'm Kenny Smith. So today we're looking at Beautiful Chaos by Gary Russell. And this is one of those rare occasions where a Doctor Who novel has done something that has fed into the TV show. But we'll discuss that later. So what can I tell you about this book? Beautiful Chaos was the 29th novel in the BBC new series Adventures range. Published on the 26th of December 2008, it was written by Gary Russell and featured the 10th Doctor and Donna Noble. And it was also released as an audiobook on the 9th of April 2009 in an abridged form by BBC Audio. But it was read by the late, great, wonderful, brilliant Bernard Cribbins. God, I love Bernard Cribbins, don't you? I think we all do. May he rest in peace, an absolute hero. So I'm going to grab my copy of the book now, having a wee look at it. On the front, we've got the Doctor and Donna. The cover has got the Doctor in his brown suit with an open-necked blue shirt, and beside him is Donna looking round over her right shoulder. In the background we can see there's lots of fire as a meteorite is blistering across the sky. And in the bottom of half of the book, underneath the taxi logo, or the lozenge, we've got a picture of Bernard Cribbins as Wilf, with a telescope beside him, and behind him is the TARDIS with the door slightly open, and there's a red light trying to get into the TARDIS, it looks like, and yeah, it looks rather serious. Lots of fiery colours on this one. And that cover was created by Lee Binding. So as we turn it over, we can see Donna Noble is back home in London, catching up with her family and generally giving them all the gossip about her journeys. Her grandfather is especially overjoyed. He's discovered a new star and had it named after him. He takes the 10th Doctor as his special guest to the naming ceremony. But the Doctor is suspicious about some of the other changes he can see in Earth's heavens, particularly that bright star right there. No, not that one, there, on the left. The world's population is slowly being converted to a new path, a new way of thinking. Something is coming to Earth, an ancient force from the dark times, something powerful, angry, and all-consuming. That's quite a bit of a tease, isn't it? It was later published again as part of the BBC Books 50th Anniversary collection, this time with a cover by two associates, which has got the Doctor in his blue suit running towards the camera, hands out, front and back, slightly squished down. He's got a bright red tie, and there's bits of what appear to be white crystal flying all around him, as his big brown overcoat, courtesy of Janis Joplin, flashes out as well. There was different text for this one, and it tells us on the back cover, Wilfred Mott is very happy. His granddaughter, Donna, is back home, catching up with her family and gossiping about her journeys. And he has just discovered a new star and had it named after him. He takes the 10th Doctor with him to the naming ceremony, but the Doctor soon discovers something else new and worryingly bright in the heavens, something that is heading for Earth. It's an ancient force from the dark times, and it is very, very angry. Let's pause now, and we could all do with a bit more Cribbins in our lives, can't we? So here's an extract, courtesy of BBC Audiobooks.
Oi! The Doctor sighed and turned back to face Donna Noble, Queen of the Oys. She wasn't there. Just the TARDIS, parked between two council dumpsters. Oh. Ah, right. He walked back and unlocked it, revealing Donna stood on the threshold. Which bit of "I'm right behind you" didn't quite make sense then? Donna asked. Which bit of "wait for me" bypassed your hearing? Which section of "I am just putting on something nice" vanished into the ether? There was no way to worm out of that one. "Sorry. Are you sorry that you didn't hear me? Sorry that you locked me inside your alien spaceship? Or sorry that you hadn't even noticed I wasn't with you?" "No way I can win this," the doctor said. "So I'm just going to let it go, all right?" Donna opened her mouth to speak again, but the doctor reached forward and put a finger on her lips. "Hush," he said. Donna hushed and winked. "I win!" And she gave him that amazing grin that she always did when she was teasing him, and he gave her that sigh that admitted he'd been caught out yet again. She slipped an arm around his and pulled him close. "So, what's the skinny?" "Skinny?" The doctor nodded towards Chiswick High Road and dragged her out onto the main street, ready to get lost in the crowds. Except there weren't any. Indeed, there weren't very many people around at all, just a couple of kids on skateboards on the opposite pavement and an old man walking his dog. The doctor raised his other hand. "Not raining?" he said. "Well spotted, Sherlock," said Donna. "Sunday?" "You wanted Friday the 15th of May, 2009, Donna. That's what I set the TARDIS for." Donna laughed. "In which case it's probably a Sunday, in August 1972. The doctor poked his head into a newsagent's and looked at the nearest newspaper. "Friday, 15th of May, 2009, he confirmed. "So, where is everyone?" "Maybe it's lunchtime," the doctor suggested. "Shall we walk to your place?" "You're coming?" The doctor looked as though the thought of not going with Donna hadn't crossed his mind. "Oh, well, I was going to." "Doctor, why are we here?" "It's the first anniversary of your father's death. And I'm not sure my mum's going to be overjoyed to see you today of all days. Your granddad will." "Yeah? Good. Take him out for a pint tonight, but to start with, I want to see them on my own." Donna was still holding his hand, and she squeezed it gently. "You understand, don't you?" He smiled. "Of course I do. Wasn't thinking. Sorry." Donna let go of his hand. "I'm going to get some flowers and walk home. Why don't I meet you back here this time tomorrow?" "Here? Tomorrow. Sold." The doctor started walking off. "Nice flower shop on the corner that-a-way," he called out. "Ask for Loretta and say I sent you." He turned a corner and was gone. Donna took a breath and walked in the direction he'd pointed. Donna sighed. "Miss you, Dad," she said out loud as she came to a halt outside a laundrette called Loretta's. Her phone buzzed with a text message and she read it. Actually, might be wrong. Loretta's might not be florist. Sorry." Men. Alien men. Useless, the lot of them. Lucas Carnes was standing in the local branch of Discount Electronics, watching a demonstration on some laptop thinner than a piece of cardboard. He was here with Joe, his 8-year-old brother, along with 30 other people, all tucked into a shop that probably safely took 10 people at most. While Joe watched intently, Lucas's gaze drifted round the shop. A skinny guy in a blue suit was tapping away at a demonstration laptop. The guy was searching for something on the internet and frowning. He reached into his pocket and took out a shiny tube and pointed it. The end glowed blue, and Lucas watched in amazement as the images on the screen downloaded and changed at an impossible rate. The blue-suited man stared intently at the changing screens. Surely he couldn't read that fast. He became aware that Lucas was watching him and smiled, almost sheepishly. The guy winked at Lucas and wandered over. Lucas leaned forward to whisper in Joe's ear that maybe it was time to go home when the guy nudged him. "So, everyone's inside all the electronic shops, yeah?" "Sorry?" "The streets were pretty empty. As I walked along, I realised everyone was in shops like this, watching these demos. Today's the launch. Lucas found himself explaining. "Everyone's interested." The guy got his shiny pen out again. "Don't mind me," he said. But Lucas did mind him a lot. "Why are you here?" he asked. The man shrugged. "Well, firstly, I'm letting a friend go home for a bit. Secondly, I was wondering why everyone was in here. And fourthly, I'm now really concerned by the technology in that laptop." Lucas knew he'd regret this. "And thirdly?" "Thirdly?" The guy looked confused and then grinned as if something had popped back into his head. "Oh, yes, thirdly, I came looking for you, Lucas Samuel Carnes." He held out a hand. "I'm here to save your life."
Thank you so much, Bernard. Even though you can't hear me, well, maybe you can. I hope you can. Up above us, looking down and smiling. Beautiful Chaos was given a couple of international editions as well, as it was published in Germany by Cross Cult in 2013 as a paperback. This was using the reprint cover, and it's called Wunderschönes Chaos, which I have done a quick check, and translates as words like Beautiful Chaos. It was also published in China by New Star Press in 2018 as a hardback edition. Unfortunately, I don't know how to pronounce it. So, let's find out more about the book, how it came to be, and how the author found it. Let's hand over to him now.
My name is Gary Russell, and quite a few years ago now, I wrote a 10th Doctor novel called Beautiful Chaos.
So how did this one come about? This must have been quite a delight for you, given that you were working on the show at the time, so you'd have known all the beats and the characters inside out.
Well, yeah, I think probably working on the programme it answers your question, really. I was at the time responsible for approving everything that BBC Books wanted to do. So I'm reasonably confident that one of the reasons I got to write a couple of novels around that time and do some non-fiction was their way of keeping me happy and keeping me on side. Oh, get Gary to do something. Oh, all right then. Oh, all right, we'll have to put up with something from Gary because that means we'll get everything else we want approved and passed through. That's what the cynic in me thinks. I wanted to do originally wanted to do a David and Martha book. But by the time I'd convinced them to do that, Martha had moved on and we'd got Donna. And we got through the whole of that Donna season, really. And we'd done the specials as well. And I think I wrote it while I'm fairly certain the next Doctor had gone out or was going out. So I probably wrote it sort of starting after Stolen Earth and that sort of Dalek-y thing had happened, and at around the time we were maybe it hadn't gone out, but we would have been making the first couple of specials, and that's when I wrote it. And so that's why I wanted to do it in flashback. It had to be after Donna had been brought back to Earth by the Doctor with her memory wiped, so it could be a nice little flashback story. And I just really enjoyed writing David and Catherine. I had their voices so clearly in my head for that, and I wanted to do a story about the family. One of the reviews at the time, I think it was the discontinuity guide online thing, slated it, of course, because it's typical Gary Russell crap, and he's not even writing a proper Doctor Who novel, he's writing a soap opera. And I thought, that's the greatest compliment you can give me, you idiot. It's about family, and it's about Alzheimer's, and it's about people coping with trauma. And trauma is something that has always interested me. The real life trauma from people caught up in mad sci-fi events. There's elements of that in Scales of Injustice. There's obviously a lot of that in The Glamour Chase. There's quite a bit of it in Business Unusual. And so, here it rears its head again in Beautiful Chaos. It's real people in unreal situations, and the effect it has on them afterwards has always been something that appeals to me.
Just reading it, particularly at the moment, as my father-in-law has dementia, and reading it was just like, this is so real. I can completely relate to it, and it's very emotionally engaging in that sense. And I think it's, considering these books were aimed at particularly at younger readers, it's a very emotionally mature and sensitively written piece of work. So I thank you for that.
And the weird thing is that at the time I wrote it, I didn't know anyone who had dementia. The whole thing for me was bit of research, I think, but a lot of it was just gut instinct. I kept thinking, I kept putting myself in the position of what would I do if I was dealing with an elderly relative or a friend or someone who had that. But I had no direct first-hand experience at that point of dealing with anyone with dementia or Alzheimer's. It just seemed the right thing to do. And I thought it was something that needed exploring.
You mentioned the Doctor and Donna, who were absolutely on the money. And then, of course, you get Sylvia and Wilf as well in the mix. And my God, you love Sylvia Noble, don't you? It came across from the Starbeast novelisation.
Oh, I adore Sylvia Noble. I adore Wilf as well. I the whole Noble family. I love Jeff as well. And there's in the original series, they're a brilliant family. And it was one thing I was grateful for, in a way, that I ended up not doing this. It wouldn't be in this exact story, but the basic idea wouldn't have worked as well with Martha Jones's family. I think you needed that immense sense of disappointment, that immense feeling of everything Donna did, her mum was looking at with an eye of, you could do so much better, and you've let us all down, and you've let me down, and you've let your dead dad down. And I just find that, because within that, because that's a horrible way to sum a character up, but within that you find that, of course, Sylvia loves her daughter, and she hates herself for thinking that way. And it was very nice when I came to do Starbeast that I could go back to some of the stuff I'd set up in Beautiful Chaos and echo that, and say 15 years later, she can now rationalize and look at how awful a person she was back then, but now she realizes she has to be like that to stop Donna remembering things. And I just find her a fascinating three-dimensional character, and Wilf very much the same. I loved him, and his relationship was just really important to me. And this new woman comes into his life who deteriorates around him, and he has to deal with, he's obviously lost his first wife at some point, and now he's going to lose his girlfriend eventually. Either she's going to pass away, but more importantly, she's going to lose cognitive memory of him. And I found that, deeply exciting and moving to write. And somewhere in the middle of it is a story with the Mandragora Helix. But really that takes, and I can see why, to weird people like the Discontinuity Guide, maybe this would be a wrong thing for a Doctor Who story. Because yes, the soap opera is taking place, is more important maybe to them than the sci-fi plot. But God, there's lots of great other little sci-fi things. Like all my books, it's got kids in it. I think this is probably the first book I'd written where there were a couple of quite important kids, and none of them die, and none of them die horribly, and none of them do anything evil. In all my previous books, children have been sort of murdered and mutilated, and infanticide is a heavy theme in a lot of my earlier stuff. And here the two kids are heroic, and they're brothers, and I think a lot of that is due to my work at the time on Sarah Jane Adventures, and knowing that, but for years everyone said, we've got to find good strong roles for women, and we've got to find good strong roles. And Sarah Jane Adventures, I think, on TV made good strong roles for kids, for teenagers to identify with. And so I kind of wanted to take that into this novel as well, and have some kids that were just really nice kids that you felt sorry for and wanted to see win, and they did. They survived anyway. So that's a winning of a sort. So all of those things are in there. But yes, it's definitely a soap opera, and proudly so.
Excellent. Now, of course, when I first read this book, I did not read page 8, which of course mentions here Mandragora Helix, created by Louis Marks. So when did that come into the thinking to feature the return of Mandragora?
It wasn't in the original brief. It was something, I can't remember whether Justin or BBC Books suggested it or whether I suggested it. It wasn't in the original outline, I know that. It was an alien presence. And I think the fact that it was related to the stars, and we got the astronomy stuff and all of that stuff, and Wilf getting the star named after him, it suddenly to my mind went, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And I remembered that thing in Mask of Mandragora about how Mandragora would come back in the early 21st century. And I just thought, gee, that does fit quite well. I genuinely don't know whether it was my idea or Justin's. I suspect it was probably mine. And I probably went, how about doing Mandragora? And I don't think the Mandragora Helix really is that big a threat in it. The computer is, and obviously the computer's channeling Mandragora, but the Helix itself is, it didn't have to be the Mandragora thing at all. I just thought it was quite a nice... I think a lot of the books around that time probably hadn't had links back to the classic series, and there was by the time this book was being done, we were getting to the stage where everybody was much more relaxed about linking modern Doctor Who. We'd been on air for 4 or 5 years at that point, so that there was a feeling, God, we'd even mentioned the word Gallifrey on television by this point. So there was more of a relaxed approach to taking things from classic shows and putting them into the novels that hadn't been, reinvented on TV like Daleks or Cybermen.
And also there was a nice wee mention to Mark of Mandragora in there as well, which I was
I think I sat down because there's also references to David Mackenty's Mandragora novel as well. I think it was a case of I just sat down and thought, well, we'll have one line, at least acknowledging all these other things, and then if people find that conflicts, that's the great thing about Doctor Who fandom, is everyone sits down and works out ways to make them all fit into one happy universe. And I don't have to worry about that because that kind of thing doesn't interest me, but I know it interests other people, so it's quite fun to make sure that everything gets a mention so that nobody feels anything's been left out or snubbed.
Good way to work. I, of course, completely missed that Dara Morgan is an anagram of Mandragora, even when rereading it. So, well done me, well done Gary, you got me.
Actually, I wonder if... Because he was called Dara because of Dara O'Brien. He was called Dara in the original plot. And I think maybe I suddenly spotted that, that could be an anagram of Mandragora if I give him a different surname. And Morgan. It just rolls off, really, isn't it? But yeah, he was always called Dara. He was Dara something. It was an Irish name he had originally. But yes, because I love the name Dara. I think it's a lovely. It's not onomatopoeic, but it's got a nice flow to it. The word Dara. You read the word Dara on a page, and your inner voice reads it quite nicely. So it's an easy name to read. Yeah.
And of course, Madame Delphi, who you mentioned earlier, the computer of the computer villain of the piece. And
to have a good old-fashioned computer villain. All my James Kirk fantasies coming out there. Yeah, Madame Delphi was basically, she's Mystic Meg. She's just, this mad old loon that reads the stars in a newspaper and nobody really takes it seriously. And then you realise at the back of it, she's actually an insane computer who wants to take over the universe. And why not? That's what you want from Doctor Who.
Completely. So by the time you wrote this book, you'd been working on the TV show as script editor and Sarah Jane and Torchwood. So how much had you learned from Russell in terms of what he liked from drama?
I don't know what I learned. I learned everything from what Russell likes in drama, but I don't think that necessarily influenced the book. What I learned from Russell that influenced the book is character, particularly Donna. And I had his voice at the back of my head going, no, Donna would never say that. The Doctor would never think that. All the way through the writing of the book. But, not in a conscious way. This is just instinctive. When you work with the man for long enough, you challenge yourself and you're going, no, that's not what Russell would accept. Which is weird because I never, when I was doing the approvals for the other BBC books, very rarely did I would sit there and say, no, you can't do that because that's not our policy. But I never sat down and thought, Russell wouldn't like that line of dialogue, or Russell wouldn't accept the Doctor thinking in those terms. For my own book, all the time, it's like this little, I'd like to say it's a little sort of devil and an angel on each shoulder. It isn't, it's two devils on each shoulder. One is Russell going, go on, and the other one's going, no, if you do that, you'll be consigned to the pits of hell. But I have his head, and I have to tell you, I still have his head in whenever I do any writing now, even if it's not Doctor Who. His influence has always been quite strong on me, and I learned everything from him because he's a fantastic teacher. So writing this book was my sort of love letter and my thank you to him for not just making this brilliant 2 or 3 years with Tennant on TV, but for allowing people to write these kind of books and play in his sandpit and play in his made-up universe. And I just wanted to get it right. And I felt there was one point, because I was showing bits of it to Russell, because I would occasionally say, I was neurotic enough that I would say, "Ooh, have I got this right? Oh, I've got this right." And I do remember there's a line in there near the beginning when they're in Chiswick, and Donna says something along the lines to the Doctor, says, "What's the skinny?" And I remember an email from Russell coming back saying, "Damn, I wish I'd thought of that line. I would have loved to have used that in the show. That's a brilliant line, and is Donna and the Doctor completely." And I thought that was lovely, because I could just hear Catherine saying it, and I could see David's reaction to it. And so all of that fed very nicely into the book. It was, their partnership on TV had been fresh. I'd been very honoured and lucky to be in read-throughs and things with them, and acted opposite both of them in those read-throughs when actors weren't around. And therefore having, seen them in character and seen them out of character and talked to them both. And so all of that fed into the book, I think, probably to the book's betterment. And obviously it was the same with Bernard, and Jacqueline. Both of them I had worked, read scripts opposite and things like that. So hearing their voice wasn't just what had gone out on TV, but was hearing them in real life as well, and just generally having some fun with them.
Yeah, particularly when you mention like Donna's distinctive "oi."
Yes.
Nobody can say "oi" like Catherine Tate.
Right. But the moment you see it written down, you can hear her doing it.
Completely.
That's
exactly
something about that character. She's just so brilliant, Donna, and it's all down to Catherine, really. I mean, obviously a lot of it's down to Russell and the writers, and she right when you start. Right, I'm sure Russell would hopefully agree with this. When you start writing a character in a script, by the time you've got to their third script and you had an actor come in and read those lines, your later scripts suddenly go, right, I can play to the strengths and weaknesses of what this actor can and can't do. And I think that's very true with Catherine, is that she's a very easy, Donna's a very easy character to write correctly, because Catherine gives you this huge landscape of what she can do, because she's so immensely talented as an actress. You go from the one Runaway Bride and you go to the Pompeii episode, and you're going, this is the same actor doing hard comedy and hard drama, and you just think that's enormous. I mean, I would say that comedians are the best actors in the world, because they have to portray so many, particularly sketch show comedians, they have to portray accurately so many different characters and sell you those characters in a 30 or 45 second sketch. And so when you've got someone like Donna, it always annoys me when people go, "Oh, it's just a comic actor," or "They're a comedian, why are they appearing in Doctor Who?" It's like, because they're going to be the best actors you can possibly get, because they are versed in turning character on a sixpence. And she's wonderful. She's just brilliant and so much fun to write for. So hearing her in my head the whole time when I was writing that book was a godsend.
You must have had a little giggle to yourself when you saw that Nettie got a mention in The End of Time.
Well, that Russell actually asked me. He said, "Do you mind if I do this?" Oh, you're asking me? Yes, I was over the moon, absolutely over the moon, that he had taken it seriously enough to give her that mention as one of the Silver Cloak. I was like, "Ooh, she's real."
Who would play her to your imagination?
I was absolutely in my head seeing Eileen Atkins. That's when I wrote the book, was absolutely who I was seeing, was Eileen Atkins. So that's how I've always seen her.
Excellent. And of course, you just mentioned Bernard a wee minute ago, having heard him in rehearsals and such like. So to get him doing the audiobook version, that must have been a real pleasure for you when you heard that news.
The biggest pleasure of all, I've said this to people before, so I apologise if this is boring people, is we were doing the read-through for The End of Time, and I was sat next to Bernie. I can't remember what I was reading in at that point, but I was. And I said to him quite randomly, by the way, thank you for doing that beautiful audiobook reading of my book. And he said, I don't know what you mean. And I said, Beautiful Chaos. I said, you won't remember, but you and he went, I thought Russell wrote that. He said, I thought that was a pseudonym for Russell T Davies. I said, no, that was me. And he said, oh my God. He said, I just assumed it was Russell because it was so powerful. And I thought, oh, thank you, Bernard. You lovely man. So I gave him a big hug.
Oh,
you like hugs.
That's lovely.
He was a beautiful and amazing man. And we all loved him so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even, I never got to meet him, but you felt like you knew him. Because he'd been in my life throughout, ever since day one. Whether it's Wombles or anything, Daleks.
That's right. He was just everyone's uncle, He was Wilf, actually. Wilf is very much Bernard Cribbins, I think.
You also made great use of Wilf and his telescope, which is something that we didn't get too much of on TV, but you actually built on that and a little bit of TV tie-in there.
Yeah, I thought it was important. I mean, it was an important part of Wilf. They talk a lot about him and his telescope up in the allotment. And I thought, let's use that as the jumping in point for the story. And then you take it to the next level and he actually ends up being a member of the British astrological or astronomical, those people anyway, the ones based in Vauxhall, which is a real place. Not Vauxhall, obviously Vauxhall's a real place, but the Scientific Institute is a real place as well, where they go for their big dinner. And so, I wanted to have all that in because I just like the idea that he sat out there long enough and he's found a new star and they've named it after him.
Which Bernard deserves. There should be a Bernard Cribbins.
There should be a Cribbins star, shouldn't there? Yes.
So, Gary, going back through Beautiful Chaos, it's around page 79. I'm just going to quote you something here. The Doctor glances himself in the mirror. He always thought he looked quite good in a dinner jacket and black tie. He hated bow ties. They made him look like a waiter, going by what happened at other parties. So, bow ties.
I see where you're going here.
Yeah, I was quite amused by that.
Yeah, yes. Had I known what was coming round the corner, maybe I wouldn't have put that line in. I happen to think it's a true line. I hate bow ties. That's me channeling myself into the Doctor. I hate bow ties. I think they're really quite awful pieces of clothing that should never have been invented, and they look very, very stupid on people. And I never liked Matt Smith, to be honest. But yeah, so the thing about people wearing bow ties when they're wearing dinner jackets, it always makes you look like a waiter. So you go to a black tie event. I don't get invited to black tie events, I should point that out. But when I see them on television, and everybody, over Frasier and all of these things, always make this joke that somebody wears a bow tie and somebody will walk in and assume they're a waiter and ask them for a drink. And I think, but that's absolutely true. If you're going to wear a black jacket and a bow tie at an event, everyone's going to assume you're the waiter. They are very, very silly items of clothing. So yes, that was definitely the Doctor channeling Gary Russell's thoughts on bow ties.
Well, I thought it was very apt. I thought, just given that with the way the different Doctors have their different mindsets, I thought this works quite nicely. So the 11th Doctor desperately trying to be cool.
He obviously heard what the 10th Doctor thought and thought, no, I will prove him wrong and I will make bow ties cool. God, I didn't have a comment about fezzes.
My goodness, glad we didn't go there. Of course, the book got a reprint in 2013 as part of the 50th anniversary collection, so that must have been a real pleasure for you when you see the august company you were in.
Really flattering. Of all the Tennant books they could have chosen, they chose that one, and I wasn't around at that point, so it's not like I could turn around and say, well, they had to keep me happy still. But no, I remember, I think it was Justin rang me up and said, just to let you know, we'd like to reprint this. And I said, joking, do I get paid again? And he went, 50 quid. And I think I got 50 quid for it. And what was nice, of course, is that also then meant that edition, which I prefer as an edition, even though it's paperback, not hardback, I love the cover of that 50th anniversary version. But that's the one that went around the world. And, there's a German edition of it, which was adapted by my lovely friend Suzanne, who also did Big Bang Generation and lots of other Doctor Who books for the German market. And There's a Chinese edition, which sadly I don't have. It's the only of Chinese, because I collect all the foreign editions of all the spin-off books. And it's the only Chinese one I'm missing is my own book. I can't find a Chinese copy of Beautiful Chaos anywhere. But it's just really flattering. And that cover has sort of gone round the world. And I think it's really lovely. Yes, I'm very, very, very flattered and honoured that there's a lot of Tennant novels out there that could have been chosen. And they went for Beautiful Chaos rather than, one with Daleks or Cybermen or something.
With the wonderful title of Wunderschönes Chaos.
That's right.
Germany.
Yes. And are you now going to try and say the Chinese one? No, you're not.
No, I'm not. But Gary, of all the books you've written, where does this one rate? I'd imagine it's quite near the top for you.
Without a doubt, technically, it's the best book I've ever written. It's the book in which everything came together. It's the book that I think is just the best written of all my books. It's the one that had the best reaction from the public. If not, as usual, the obviously online Doctor Who book fans all hated it because it's got my name on it. I've always thought that, if it didn't have my name on and had somebody else's name on, they'd all be going, this is a great book. But because it was my name, it's like, oh no, let's just criticise it. But it did really, really well. And people come up to me even today if someone wants to get it signed or something, and they always say that it was a moving, emotional book, and that's all I could have ever wanted. So it's the book that I always say that there's three books that I love. Legacy, because it was the first, and technically it's not the best, but it's the first, and therefore it's child number one. And child number two that I've always been very fond of is Business Unusual. But the child I'm proudest of and sent to university and went off and got a good job is definitely Beautiful Chaos. And I think, I think that will always be top of the pile for me.
Amazing. Love it. Gary, thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks once again to Gary. Always a pleasure, never a chore. Well, it is for me. It might be for him, but it's definitely not for me. Before we go on, let's have a second extract. Again, just an excuse to hear the wonderful Bernard.
There was a tinkle of someone tapping a glass with a spoon. "Ladies and gentlemen, before we eat, I should like to introduce you to our guest of honour," Dr. Crossland was saying. "In honour of being the first to spot the new star, officially known as 7432 Mott, I give you Wilfred Mott." There was thunderous applause. Then one of the waiters led the Doctor, Donna and Nettie to the table to join the rest of the guests. The Doctor was nabbed by Wilf and positioned between him and Crossland, while Nettie was on Wilf's other side and Donna next to her. The Doctor looked expectantly at the empty seat to his right, wondering who was going to sit there. The seat was yanked back by a woman whose clothing could, at best, be described as eccentric and, at worst, insane. The blouse she was wearing appeared to have Galileo's map of the heavens embroidered on it by hand. "Ariadne Holt," she said, in a tone that suggested to the Doctor that this wasn't just an introduction, but was, in fact, a complete explanation. "Hello," he said. "I'm the Doctor." "I know," Ariadne said. "You do?" "Crossland told me, suggested I sit here, next to you, for dinner." "Indeed. You're Smith, John Smith. You write books with pictures about the constellations, no?" "Ah, no, not me. Sorry." Ariadne looked past him to Crossland. "Wrong Smith," she said. "This one's not the author." Crossland glanced at the Doctor. "What is he, then?" "I'm right here," the Doctor said. "Ha!" snorted Donna, remembering the taxi ride. Crossland looked at Wilf. "Thought you said the chappie was an expert, Mr. Mott." "Actually," the Doctor said, "I think you'll find the chappie is a bit of an expert, especially on your so-called chaos bodies." That got their attention. The Doctor took a deep breath. "It's not a star, you know." "We know it isn't," said Ariadne. "Just don't know what it actually is," Crossland said. "I do." Everyone turned to look at him. "It's lovely Ariadne that gave me the final piece of the puzzle with that unique blouse she's wearing." The doctor stopped momentarily because he was looking at Henrietta Goodhart. Nettie was staring straight ahead, like she had zoned out. Donna caught the doctor's gaze and nodded slightly, and the doctor gave her a sad smile. Then he drew attention back to himself, giving Donna time to stand Nettie up, briefly resting a hand on Wilf's shoulder to stop him following. As they began to move away, the doctor resumed his explanation. It's not a star so much as a superheated ball of psionic energy, which acts as a containment field around a malign intelligence that wants to dominate and expand and survive. That Galileo star map thing reminded me of when I first encountered it back in the 15th century and foolishly brought a sliver of it to Earth. Italy, in fact, near Florence. You are mad, Ariadne said. It was the 15th century bit, wasn't it? Crossland was nodding. That and the rest. Wilf tapped Crossland's arm. You should listen to him, Mr. Dr. Crossland, CBE, sir, 'cause the doctor is usually right. So, Doctor, said Crossland, what do you call this fanciful ball of energy, then? Oh, that's simple, the doctor said. One word. Mandragora. As the doctor said Mandragora, the chaos body began pulsating out in space. The other lights nearby pulsated in rhythmic response and moved closer. On a mission. As the doctor said Mandragora, 7 people sat bolt upright in an SUV in a car park at Heathrow Airport, as if they'd just been switched on. The SUV began to move forward, on a mission. As the doctor said Mandragora, Donna Noble was sitting in the outer bar with Nettie, holding her hand, when she saw the head of hospitality stop pouring a drink. Gianni opened his mouth. Words were being formed, but no sound came out, until he gasped and finally spoke. But he spoke so softly, Donna wasn't sure he had said anything at all. As the doctor said Mandragora, Madame Delphi wave-formed into excited life in the penthouse suite of the Oracle Hotel. Dara Morgan, she exclaimed. He is aware of me. Dara Morgan thought the computer would have shaken with glee if it had been possible. Who? The doctor. After all these eons, after all this distance, the stars were aligned exactly as I predicted. Tomorrow's horoscopes will be very different now. And on Madame Delphi's website, read by people all over the world, Sunday's predictions for every sign of the zodiac rewrote themselves.
You can still get a BBC Audiobooks digital release of Beautiful Chaos, so if you go on to the place where you get your audiobooks from, you should be able to pick it up quite easily and at a very good price. So now, let's find out what the reviewers had to say, and we're going to crack open Doctor Who magazine to see what their reviewer Matt and Michael thought about it. Chiswick, the present day. Crowds gather for the launch of a new 4G laptop. A new constellation appears in the sky. Buildings are rewired with a mysterious new fibre optic cabling, pulsing with deadly alien energy. Across the world, people are possessed by the spirit of something ancient and terrible. All of these are a prelude to the revenge of one of the Doctor's old enemies. The Earth is about to come under attack once more. This invasion becomes almost incidental, though, when it plays out in the background of Donna's deteriorating relationship with her mother, Sylvia. While the companion's family has been an important element of 21st century Doctor Who, Beautiful Chaos takes this further by placing the Noble family's travails centre stage and directly addresses the death of Donna's dad, Jeff Noble, something that was sensitively skirted around in TV. Doing her daughterly duty, Donna has returned home to Chiswick on the first anniversary of her father's death, only to find that Sylvia has not come to terms with the loss, still consumed by unspoken grief and raging at Donna to release the pain she can't express. And while Sylvia could have been the mother-in-law from hell, writer Gary Russell ensures that we understand her perspective. Her daughter keeps vanishing off to goodness knows where with a man Sylvia has met twice, while her father is cultivating a winter romance. Placing the responsibility on herself for keeping the family together, it's hardly a shock that Sylvia lashes out at those she thinks are threatening to tear it apart. Meanwhile, Donna can only write in a letter all the things she can't tell her mother face to face. As a meditation on her complicated and very real love-hate relationship with Sylvia, Beautiful Chaos scores strongly. Equally strong is the characterisation of Donna's granddad, the adorable Wilfred Mott. His joy at having discovered a new star and the childlike glee with which he explains it to the doctor are the lighter side of his personality. But he's also a sentimental old thing. His gentle romancing of the English eccentric Nettie, whose Alzheimer's threatens to strip her of everything that she is, and was a horrifying premonition of Donna's own fate, and his belief in his granddaughter and the doctor form a touching heart of the novel. A horrifying premonition of Donna's own fate and his belief in his granddaughter and the doctor form the touching heart of the novel. This is Wilf's book more than anyone's. Against all this, we have a Doctor and Donna who are true to their TV personas, and a plot that hints at the high-speed action of episodes like The Sontaran Stratagem, with Donna's theft of a van and her escape by bicycle at various points raising a titter as you imagine Catherine Tate pedalling away furiously. But, though superficially a fun romp, Beautiful Chaos is really a sad book, full of private sorrow being repressed in that very English way. It's about what has been lost, and how those who are left behind or have to watch their loved ones fade away deal with their grief. For those reasons, it's among the most adult and emotionally true Doctor Who novels, and Gary Russell's best. There, you cannot say much higher praise than that. Let's have a look at Goodreads and see what the readers think. It's got a rating of 3.96 out of 5 from 3,334 ratings and 303 reviews. Of those, 5-star 31%, 4-star 39%, 3-star 23%, 2-star 4%, and 1-star less than 1%. Let's have a look at some of the reviews quickly. 5 stars from Ken, who says, "This is truly one of the best 10th Doctor novels. It fits in seamlessly with the second half of Series 4, with mentions of the Adipose and Atmos. But more importantly, it tackles the death of Jeff Noble. I really felt for Sylvia, as she's still grieving for her husband. With the inclusion of a classic series monster, it really adds an extra layer to a well-written and brilliantly plotted story." 5 stars also from Charlie Tin 17 and TARDIS. "This is the first book I've read based off TV, glorified fan fiction, as I call it. Bought this while in London. I'm at the largest bookstore in Europe, for the first time and possibly last time. I have to buy a book. Hello Doctor Who shelf. I picked up the 10th Doctor's book because he's my favourite Doctor, and Donna is my favourite companion. That aside, I didn't think I'd like it that much. I was wrong. I'm pretty sure I cried multiple times. It was beautiful, accurate and real to the show. It was perfect. But you can't please everybody. It got a 1-star review from Elizabeth, Miss Eliza. I don't like to read about illness and despair. I have enough of that in my own life, thank you. This isn't the place to talk about it really, but I must touch on the issue so that you'll understand why this book made me want to get up in the author's face and explain a few facts to him, possibly with my fists. When I was in grade school, my mom had 2 bouts of cancer, which she survived, though surviving took a toll. The chemo and other therapies sped things up, so that while she is only 30 years older than me, her body thinks it's really 50 years older than me, which makes her the same age as when her mother got Parkinson's. My mom has Parkinson's. This is a daily struggle. Therefore, I think you can see why I use reading as an escape. I want to be anywhere and anywhen than here. And a book that dwells on these issues? No thank you. While Russell's use of an incurable illness, in this case Alzheimer's, as the real evil is apt, he goes too far into the braveness of the battle. Nettie dealing with her chronic illness, bravely and nobly, sorry, I had to use that pun, just felt like some sort of propaganda for dealing with this kind of crisis in a stiff upper lip, keeping up appearances way. The message was heavy-handed. I had such hopes for this book because Donna Noble is my favourite companion in the new series, hands down, perhaps even in all the series. By bookending a story about Alzheimer's, With Donna's own memory loss, it's a punch to the gut. That's what it is. But more than that, by showing me the struggles that Donna's mother and grandfather are going through, it makes Donna's decision to travel in the TARDIS seem callous. Russell has taken my favourite character and put a spin on her that I don't like one bit. As for the plot, well, take out the struggle with family and illness, and do we really even have much of a plot? No, we don't. The author has made a flimsy story about Mandragora returning, which, for those of you not inculcated into every medium the Doctor appears in, television, written and audio, well, you might be more than a little lost, but Russell doesn't seem to care or even want to explain for those new to this evil. Not every reader knows everything about Doctor Who. A book like this needs to be written for all levels of readers. Also, the Doctor is more than a bit bitchy and down in humans. Oh, and seriously authors, don't have the title of your book used like 50 times throughout the story. It's annoying. As I said, you can't please everybody all of the time. So there we go. Remember, you can follow us on social media. We're at Power of 3 Pod on Twitter with a number 3. We're on Blue Sky at Finished Zine. And we also have a Facebook page where we'll be sharing the international editions of the covers for this book and other such gems. As you know, we like to play out with a song in this podcast, and what could be more appropriate than, well, another little bit of Bernard Cribbins wouldn't be a problem, would it? Do you think? No, I don't think so either. So why don't we have Bernard's famous hit, Right Said Fred. Until next time, I've been Kenny Smith. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Right said Fred, both of us together, one each end and steady as we go. Tried to shift it, couldn't even lift it, we was getting nowhere, and so we had a cup of tea, and right said Fred, give a shout for Charlie, up comes Charlie from the floor below. After straining, even and complaining, we was getting nowhere, and so we had a cup of tea, and Charlie had a think, and he thought we ought to take off all the handles and the things what held the candles, but it did no good. Well, I never thought it would. All right, said Fred, have to take the feet off to get them feet off, wouldn't take a mo. Took its feet off, even took the seat off, should have got us somewhere, but no. So Fred said, let's have another cup of tea, and we said, righto. All right, said Fred, have to take the door off, need more space to shift the so-and-so. Had bad twinges, taking off the inches, and it got us nowhere, and so we had a cup of tea, and right said Fred, have to take the wall down, that there wall is gonna have to go. Took the wall down, even with it all down, we was getting nowhere, and so we had a cup of tea, and Charlie had a think, and he said, look Fred, I got a sort of feeling, if we remove the ceiling with a rope or two, we could drop the bladder through. All right, said Fred, climbing up a ladder with his crowbar, gave a mighty blow. Was he in trouble? Half a ton of rubble landed on the top of his dome. So Charlie and me had another cup of tea, and then we went home. I said to Charlie, we'll just have to leave it standing on the landing, that's all. You see, the trouble with Fred is he's too hasty. Now, you never get nowhere if you're too hasty.